Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach and today I am driving a 2022 Subaru WRX. Up front is a 2.4 liter turbocharged flat 4 and down below is a 6-speed manual transmission. Now I am super excited to be driving this here WRX because they recently redesigned it completely for the 2022 model year. There are a couple of things that stick out with this new generation, so I'll be sure to cover it in the rest of the video. But before we get on to anything else, I have a website, zackpradel.com, where you can buy stickers like this retro sticker pack or big friggin' bottle sticker, both with free shipping. You could also submit your own vehicle to be reviewed by me through a quick and easy submission form, and you can read my behind the scenes blog to see what I'm filming before it comes out on the channel. But let's get back to that 2.4 liter flat 4 under the hood. Well, like I said, it is turbocharged and it makes 271 horsepower, which isn't anything to thumb your nose at. Unfortunately, you don't get much sound, but it does have a lot more linear of a power band, meaning there isn't that significant kick that I kind of came to expect from Subarus. It's actually very smooth, kind of like older 90s Japanese cars, which I actually really like. It's a lot more solid, a lot more predictable. Now it is an increase of displacement to 2.4 liters where previous WRXs were only 2 liters. And so you do get that low end torque. Driving it around town, you actually get a little bit more of that oomph that you're looking for. The same thing was true with the 2022 BRZ that I drove. That also got an increase from 2 liters to 2.4 for 2022, and it was noticeable in that vehicle as well. So I'm really happy with this power band and the way it performs. Like I said, paired to its 6-speed manual transmission, again feels like the BRZ, and I really like it. It has nice shifter throw feeling. The clutch isn't heavy, but it's also not light. It's a pretty good middle ground. It's maybe a tiny bit stiff for a passenger car, but I'm definitely not complaining. Last but not least, of course, the WRX is all-wheel drive, and it gets Subaru's symmetrical all-wheel drive system, which has been industry-leading for over 20 years. I'm a big fan of it. Now, that does dip a little bit into the miles per gallon, but hey, I'll take what I can get. Speaking of fuel economy, with that all-wheel drive, this does average about 23.5. At least that's what the owner of this one has managed to do in just under 6,000 miles. With that out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have 2 physical gauges and a screen. On the left is my tachometer and coolant temperature. On the right is my speedometer and fuel. And then I do get a center screen that I can customize to show me a couple different things. Pretty much all modern Subarus have this same screen in it. I've come to like it. Gives you some solid information, but nothing over the top. On the steering wheel, on the left, I have my skip track, volume, voice command, source, phone options, and information down to the bottom left for that gauge screen we just talked about. And off to the right, I do have cruise control settings. However, this does not get radar cruise since it is a manual transmission vehicle. The overall look and feel of the steering wheel is very on par with modern Subaru, with stitching around the outside, this red stitching I kind of like. Definitely a little bit of a sportier feel. And it does say WRX in what I can only assume is fake carbon fiber. Off to the left, I do have a climate control vent, as well as a trunk release and my traction control on and off, gauge dimmer switch, and that's it. We get a bunch of dead switches in there as well. On the door, I do have my power mirror options as well as my power windows, of which all 4 are auto. Definitely very nice to see. Moving into the center, visually, this is one of the biggest changes to the interior of the WRX. It gets Subaru's giant screen system that they've used in the Legacy for a couple of years now. And so I'm not gonna harp on it too long. Unfortunately, I don't get really any fun gauges or screens, especially being the WRX, a little bit more fun enthusiast vehicle. I would have liked to have seen that. This also isn't any special edition of the WRX, so I guess I can't be too mad at it. Here is what the backup camera looks like. Pretty straightforward in that regard. It does have some backup lines, and they do adjust when you turn the steering wheel, which is fantastic. Overall, I like the functionality of this big screen, and in the shade, it actually looks pretty good, what you're seeing here on screen. But as soon as it hits the light, it starts to not look fantastic. I don't know how these big screens will age either. I don't know if this will stay modern. I don't know if it will look completely dated in 5 years. It definitely might. And we've seen that with Tesla. Tesla's looked incredibly cutting edge, but looking at a Tesla interior now definitely seems a little bit old. So we'll see how these screens hold up in the Subaru. Down below that screen, we have our 12-volt outlet, aux in, and two 2.1 amp USB chargers. This is interesting because they don't include a USB-C in this area. A lot of modern cars are switching to USB-C. Then we do have a center cubby area, nothing really too crazy, and then the shifter. I really like the look of the shifter. Again, it looks the same as what you'd find in the BRZ, and that's not a bad thing. And overall, I like the feeling of it. Moving past the shifter, we do have another additional cubby, as well as 2 cup holders. So we will do a big friggin' bottle test here in the brand new Subaru WRX, and I'm happy to report that actually there's a little bit of wiggling, but it actually does fit. The Subaru WRX from 2022 passes the big friggin' bottle test. Then I do have a little center console, and we'll talk about the seats. The seats are nothing showy. They're fine. They're comfortable enough, but again, not the top of the line. This isn't the top trim, and so I don't get leather or anything like that, to be expected from pretty base seats. And Subaru definitely knows how to remove features for a base model. Up until 2005, a radio was optional. They know a thing or two about blank switches. But speaking of seats, we do have back seats. So let's go do a backseat review. All right, so we're in the back of the 2022 Subaru WRX. And a couple of things to note back here. First of all, the same fabric from the front seats carries on back here. They're not the softest things in the world. They're not super comfortable, but they work as seats. Knee room, good. My knees aren't hitting the seat in front of me. Headroom, pretty good. I could feel my head starting to get a little close. However, these seats are actually noticeably higher up than the seats in front, which is kind of strange. However, if I slouch down a little bit, it wouldn't be terrible to ride back here. I do get a center console with 2 cup holders, as well as I do have 2 2.1 amp USB chargers back here. Again, traditional USBs. So if you want to charge your devices in the back seat, you can absolutely do that, or utilize that for 2 more charging ports for the front seats if you have a long enough cord. Let's go hop around back. We'll take a quick look at the trunk and cargo space, and then we'll talk about the looks. All right, so we're on the back of the Subaru WRX, and we do have a trunk button on the key fob that does raise it up. And once we are back here, nothing really crazy to talk about. I do have this Subaru rubberized floor mat, which is pretty nice, but a lot of metal up here. My voice is actually echoing. I don't know if you can hear that on camera, but kind of interesting to note. I can also pull up this tab. We don't get a spare tire. We do get some extra Subaru bits, but no spare tire here in the WRX. Something I would have liked to have seen on a more off-road oriented vehicle. Might have to change a flat out on the trails, so I would have liked to have seen that, but then not the end of the world. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and this is sort of the controversial part of the brand new Subaru WRX, at least right now at its time of launch. Maybe if you're watching this video years down the road, maybe it aged gracefully, maybe it didn't age well at all, but the plastic cladding, that's what has really upset people. These big exaggerated wheel arches covered in plastic instead of just leaving them bare in traditional metal. And I have to say, at first I was a little bit disappointed, but as I look at the car, it definitely starts to grow on me. And as we get to my final thoughts with it, I love the plastic cladding for one reason and one reason only. I feel as though Subaru is almost flipping the bird to stance culture. In the last 10-15 years, the Subaru WRX has become a platform for modification. People have stanced these out, slammed them to the ground, put giant obnoxious wheels on them. And the original WRX was meant for rally driving, off-road racing. That's literally where the name comes from, World Rallycross. And so the WRX has become this sort of platform for stance cars at some point. Yeah, people still do rally builds with them, of course, but I assume there was this Calvin and Hobbes moment with the WRX that made them do this more off-road oriented feel again. They're switching it back to what it was originally intended to be. If you look at any of the press releases or go on the website for the 2022 WRX, it all says rally inspired. They even tout that they've won 14 of the last 16 World Rally Championships. They say, oh, this is meant for off-road. We track tune the suspension. As if to read between the lines and say, F you, stance boys. Stop messing with our rally car. And so what do I think of this car? Did they achieve it? Yes and no. Yes, the engine is more linear. It's straight to the point. It has that solid, reliable, consistent power, but it lost a little bit of its pizzazz. But on the flip side, the body, suspension feels very off-road ready, something that the WRX was originally founded upon. And so like ships in the night, I think the engine and the body passed each other without knowing it. I want that punchy engine where it's nothing, everything, where I have to wait for it. I gotta work for that power. Here, I have it, it's here, and it's good to go. But I love the exterior. I love, as much as I hate this word, I love the vibe of this car. This does scream off-road world rally champion to me. As this car lives on, I'm excited to see people modify it, put a bigger turbo onto it, get that punchiness back. Then I think this really would be the best WRX you could get your hands on. But for now, the engine is just a little bit too businessy. It doesn't have that weird bite and snarl that I've come to know and love from Subaru. It feels like it wasn't designed by the engineers. It feels like it was designed by someone in a suit, not by someone who spends their hours in the garage, under the car, in the car, and on top of the car. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm so excited to share the new WRX with you guys. This was a very, very interesting and informative drive. I hope you learned something, and I hope that if you're considering buying one of these, get out there and drive one. See what it's like, because you might not share the opinions that I do, but I've shared with you mine today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.